Good evening, everybody. Welcome to tonight's meeting of the Escondido City Council. Please rise for a moment of reflection and remain standing for the flag salute.
Yes, please join me in a moment of reflection. We come together tonight to say thank you. Thank you for the privilege, the blessing, the honor it is to serve here in the city of Escondido. We come together tonight as a diverse community, a community of different backgrounds, different beliefs, different presents, and different futures, yet one common goal, and that is the betterment of this city. We come together tonight to seek guidance, wisdom, and discernment during deliberations that transpire this evening, and in doing so, we lift up Councilmember Fitzgerald, Councilmember Martinez, Councilmember Christian Garcia, Deputy Mayor Joe Garcia, and Mayor White. May they be granted peace and wisdom as they lead our city into a bright and prosperous future. Amen.
Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pray again.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, this meeting is called to order, and we'll do a quick roll call. Councilmember Fitzgerald.
Present.
Councilman Christian Garcia.
Here.
Councilmember Martinez.
Present.
Deputy Mayor Garcia.
Here.
And I, Mayor White, am here. Do we have a report out of closed session tonight?
No public report. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, then we'll move on to public comments.
Yes, we have a number of public comments, and just for everyone's awareness, since we have more that are going to exceed 10 minutes, we'll do oral communications for 10 minutes. Then everyone beyond 10 minutes, you'll have your oral communications at the end after the remaining agenda items. So our first speaker is Marnie Von Wilpert.
Good evening, City Council. Good evening, Mayor. Good evening to our clerk and to our City Attorney. My name is Marnie Von Wilpert, and I am actually a colleague in local government. I am a San Diego City Council member just down the road, and I'm coming today to ask you to cancel the contract with the Department of Homeland Security and ICE for the firing range here in the city of Escondido. And I come to you not asking that I have any idea how to do your jobs, because I know that I don't. I understand governing is hard. I do know, though, that this has become a larger public safety and global issue. I care deeply about public safety. I actually chair the city's public safety department or committee at City Hall. However, what ICE is doing in our communities is not making us safer. It is breaking the trust with local law enforcement. People are afraid to call 911, afraid to speak up when we have actual crime in our city, in our region. And for this reason, I'm asking you to cancel this contract with ICE and keep them out of our city. It's also questionable whether or not this comports with the California Values Act, in which we will not use city or local resources to do any sort of immigration enforcement whatsoever. My father was an immigrant to this country, chasing the American dream, and he later served our nation in the United States Army. So I understand the balance we have to have between public safety and local law enforcement and keeping rogue agencies that are not even abiding by the Constitution off of our streets. What we saw in Minneapolis resulted in the deaths of American citizens. Alex Preddy and Renee Good. God forbid that ever happened here. So I've come with members of the community. We're delivering a petition tonight of over 3,000 signatures. Over 1,500 of them are local Escondido residents. And we are part of a larger community, though, here in Southern California, standing up for our communities in local government against the abuses of ICE and this federal government. So thank you very much, and I will deliver this to the clerk.
Our next speaker is Maria Wallace.
Buenas noches, council members and mayor. Mi nombre es María y esta ciudad ha sido mi residencia por más de 30 años. Por meses he venido aquí para tener un diálogo con ustedes en relación a inmigración y a lo que la ciudad de Escondido ha estado planeando en hacer si tenemos agentes federales de ICE en nuestras calles en la forma que ha estado pasando en Los Ángeles, Chicago y Minnesota. Ahora, con el descubrimiento de este contrato entre la Policía de Escondido y Homeland Security para dejar que los agentes federales de ICE puedan practicar al tiro al blanco en nuestro propio campo de tiro y luego que lo que han practicado lo puedan usar en nosotros, los residentes, lo considero completamente fuera de ética y sentido común. Esto es una cosa horrible. En las últimas 2 semanas, los kidnappings han aumentado en diferentes áreas de Escondido. Y la gente tiene miedo. El 29 de diciembre levantaron a mi vecino de 68 años de edad, quien tiene diabetes, tiene hijos y nietos, y ahora uno de sus nietos no quiere ir a la escuela porque su grandpa no está en casa. Señores, quiero que ustedes me digan, ¿quiénes son estos agentes? ¿Quiénes son? ¿Los conocen? ¿Tienen una idea de dónde vienen? Pero no me pueden contestar. ¿Qué sabemos de ellos? Creo que solo sabemos que vienen enmascarados, no tienen un uniforme, un logo que nos diga la agencia de dónde pertenecen, no sabemos si son parte de los Proud Boys, enero 6, deniers, racist, derechistas. A estos individuos sí les puedo llamar terroristas domésticos, porque su trabajo es aterrorizar a la comunidad. También sabemos que estos agentes encapuchados pueden matar y no va a haber justicia. Yo sé que este contrato se puede cancelar y también sé que los republicanos, Cristian García, Joe García, Judy Fitzgerald, Mayor White y junto con el chief de la policía no lo van a cancelar. Y los que dan a este contrato ha estado, y las excusas que dan es que este contrato ha estado desde el 2013, pero les digo a ustedes, las cosas son diferentes ahora y al ustedes no cancelarlo, la comunidad va a perder la confianza que se ha formado por muchos años en nuestra policía. También creo que al no cancelarlo, este contrato, ustedes están manteniendo las puertas abiertas para que ICE se sienta libre y cómodo para llevarse a nuestra gente. Pero en fin, en su conciencia lo hallarán. Yo puedo ver que el poder y el dinero son más importantes que estar juntos a su comunidad. Gracias.
Our next speaker is Greg Oliver.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. We're obviously here today about the contract with the Department of Homeland Security, specifically the lease of the municipal firing range to Homeland Security investigations. To some, this might appear like a routine administrative matter. However, the fact sheet that we provided today demonstrates that DHS of 2026 is an agency in a profound state of institutional crisis. We residents here are alarmed about the trajectory of our federal government, but we are not alarmists. We're realists. Over the last year, the Department of Homeland Security has fundamentally reshaped. Through the One Big Beautiful Bill, ICE's budget tripled to $30 billion, siphoning resources from other law enforcement agencies like the FBI and the ATF, and even FEMA. This isn't just a polity shift, it's the gutting of our nation's broader safety infrastructure to fund a singular militarized deportation agenda. ICE answers to over 90 committees and is effectively unaccountable. When a single political employee can bottleneck disaster relief funds from local communities while fast-tracking enforcement surges, the basic checks and balances of our democracy are failing. Someone who doesn't know these facts might see the training contract as a harmless revenue stream. But once we recognize that DHS is being weaponized as a tool of executive overreach, the decision to host their training facilities becomes a statement of local values. We are asking you to speak to us to square how you can subsidize an agency that is currently operating outside the norms of the Constitution with your assumed desire to serve the community. We're not asking you to solve the federal immigration problem tonight. we're asking you to recognize that Escondido should not be a silent partner in the erosion of the rule of law. We expect our leaders to look beyond the paperwork and see systemic threat this agency currently poses to the stability of our democratic institutions. Cancel the ICE contract.
Our next speaker is Laura Hunter, and this will be our final speaker for the first portion of oral communications. And just a reminder, everyone else who's in the list, you will have an opportunity to speak. It'll just be at the end of the meeting for oral communications.
Good evening, Laura Hunter from Escondido. So today is Ash Wednesday, which is a reminder about the importance of equality and unity, a reminder that every life is precious, a reminder that all of us are at their base the same, a reminder that no matter who we are, how we practice, who we are called to love our neighbors and to welcome the stranger. And I'm reminded today that ICE in our community embodies neither of those energies. Next week is maybe the most important decision that you're going to make in 20 years. I want to address a couple things that I've heard with some responses. In terms of, does this make more ICE presence here? Whether the contract brings 200 new ICE members into our community or just keeps 200 of the existing ones that are in the county in Escondido, driving through, staying longer, it's the same difference. It's more presence in Escondido at a time when we want far less. I've heard issues about, well, we can't cancel it without cause. Yes, you can. You don't need cause. The language of the MOA is clear. Either party, they could do it too. Either party, by written notice, can terminate the contract. So you don't have to worry about that. However, there is plenty of cause. If your conscience, you want some cause, there's plenty of cause to go around. In the ICE of 2013, 2024, you thought you were contracting with a professional law enforcement agency. The ICE of 2025 executes bystanders, deports children, uses them as bait, deliberately terrorizes community as part of their strategy. The risks of economic loss, those are new too. Minneapolis has a report out. They've lost $200 million out of their local economy in 1 month. Police overtime. Police had to pay $5.3 million in overtime when their entire budget for the year is $2.3 million. In 1 month, they burned through twice of their annual overtime. Opposing the contract is not opposing the police. Last week, you can look into the future and you can see and expect Minnesota to come here. It's a causal chain. Where did they put Greg Bavino when they pulled him out of Minneapolis? They put him here. ICE, now they're saying they want to put ICE at the polling places. Okay, D48 is a target of Donald Trump. D48 is in Escondido. These things lead to one another and we're at risk. You have a choice of more ICE in Escondido or less ICE in Escondido, and the choice should be obvious. Thank you.
No further public comments at this time, Mr. Mayor. We'll continue on to consent calendar.
All right, thank you. We're on to the consent calendar. Tonight, items 1 through 12 are on consent, and I do want to note, register a no vote on item 12 for Councilmember Martinez. But other than that, I'll move to approve items 1 through 12. And ask for a second.
I'll second.
Perfect. Please vote.
Voting is open. Motion approved, 5-0.
All right, that takes us to public hearings, and the first one tonight is the 2025 through 2029 Housing and Urban Development Consolidated Plan and Allocation Process for fiscal year 26 through 27, and I'll turn the time over to our presenters. And I'll open the public hearing.
Okay, good evening, Mayor and City Council. My name's Danielle Lopez. I'm your Housing and Neighborhood Services Manager. And with me this evening is Dulce Salazar, Management Analyst over the Community Development Block Grant Program, or CDBG. Tonight, we're holding the first of two public hearings for our 2026-2027 Annual Action Plan. On tonight's agenda, we will be providing a brief background on the CDBG program. We'll review the priorities approved in the 5-year consolidated 2025 through 2029 plan and the recommended allocation process for 2026-2027 funding. We'll talk a little bit about the request to release an RFP for CDBG funding, who's been funded in the past, and then we'll talk about next steps. After the next steps, we're going to request that the council receive public comment from the audience, close the public hearing, and then move on to council discussion. For the council discussion, we have a slide prepared to help guide us through that conversation, just to ensure that we touch on all the necessary items that we are requesting your guidance on this evening. The purpose of tonight's presentation is to conduct the first of two required public hearings. The second public hearing will come before you on May 20th. At that meeting, we will bring the funding recommendations for council's consideration. Tonight, we'll be asking council to reaffirm or amend the priorities of the 2025-2029 5-year consolidated plan. The current priorities were approved on June 25th. Every year at the first public hearing for this process, council has the opportunity to review, reaffirm, or amend these priorities. We'll also be asking council to approve an allocation process for fiscal year 2026-27 for the CDBG funds to utilize the maximum 15% allowable for public services and 20% allowable for administration. And lastly, we'll be asking council to approve the release of an RFP for CDBG funding. We'll be looking for some guidance on a few questions regarding the RFP. And again, as I said, we'll have a slide at the end to guide that discussion. So tonight's focus is on the Community Development Block Grant, or CDBG. And these are the funds for 2026 through 2027. The City of Escondido receives an annual allocation from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, or HUD, for the operation of its CDBG programs. Community Development Block Grant serves low and moderate income residents and/or areas and improves living environments, resources, and economic opportunities. As a recipient of the federal funds, the city is required to submit two plans, one of them being the 5-year consolidated plan, which outlines the city's goals and priorities. Like I said, the current consolidated plan was approved by council on June 25th, 2025, and that covers July 1, 2025 through June 30th, 2029. Today, we'll be asking the council to reaffirm or amend those priorities. In addition to our 5-year plan, we're required to submit an annual action plan. The action plan outlines specifically how we'll spend the money each year. After tonight's meeting and based on the guidance received, we'll begin the process of writing the 2026-2027 annual action plan, which we'll be bringing back to you on May 20th. So here we have the 25-29 consolidated plan priorities that we're asking you to consider this evening. There are 4 of them. They are to support the development and preservation of affordable rental and homeowner units, expand access to supportive services to prevent and reduce homelessness, promote safe and healthy communities by improving public facilities, upgrading infrastructure, and supporting neighborhood revitalization efforts, and delivering essential supportive services to vulnerable populations. Again, these priorities are reviewed on an annual basis and can be amended as needed. During the council discussion, we will be asking you 2 questions regarding these priorities. 1, would you like to reaffirm or amend them? And 2, should the RFP for CDBG funding focus on any of these in particular, or should it be, or should the RFP cover all of the priorities like it usually does? Here we have an example of how our allocation is typically broken down. We don't have, this number is for the 2025-2026 funding year. We don't have our 26-27 yet. We typically receive that around May or June. So hopefully for the next public hearing, we'll have the exact dollar amount for you. But this allocation is based on a HUD-mandated formula that factors in population, poverty level, and other demographic and economic development data. Per HUD regulation, we can use up to 20% of our allocation for administration. We can use up to 15% for public services, and then the remainder would go to capital projects. Just the admin portion of this pays for the neighborhood services staff and the operating budget specific to CDBG. The public service funds go to programs such as Alabaster Jar, Mama's Kitchen, Palomar Family Health, and then the neighborhood revitalization and capital expenses are for the projects that you see that make a physical difference in our communities. So these are public facilities and infrastructure improvements. Next, we'll talk about the RFP for CDBG funding. Pending council approval, staff will release an RFP for that funding next week. At the end of March, staff will review applications and prepare recommendations on funding. During the month of April, staff will conduct one-on-one meetings with council members to review proposals and then draft the annual action plan to bring back before you on May 20th. On this slide, you will see all of the items for your consideration this evening. They all impact the RFP in some way, and your decision on these questions will guide how we will finalize writing that RFP. I will put these questions back up on the screen during the council discussion, but very briefly, they are: do you want to reaffirm or amend the priorities? Should the RFP have a specific focus? Do you want to approve an allocation maximizing the admin and public service CDBG dollars? Should funding limits be placed on grant requests? And should CDBG continue to fund internal city departments? One thing I'd like to add that is not on the slide is that we will be adding a question to the RFP asking if the organization would be able to operate its program if we were to award less funding than requested, and vice versa, what they could do with more. So that question is related to the question regarding funding limits. And we can get into that a little bit later in the discussion. So this slide shows the public services that we funded over the last 5 years. You can see how our allocation has fluctuated slightly. The last 2 years have been pretty stable, but prior to that, we were seeing pretty regular reductions in our allocation every year. For fiscal 23-24, this is actually an example of when staff and council chose not to fund public services at the 20% cap. This happened most likely because there was a larger capital project that needed additional funding at that time. The public services that are bold are the ones that are run by city departments. We currently only fund 2 city services, and they are the Senior Resource Program out of the Park Avenue Community Center and the Mobile Recreation Program, which is a free camp out at Grove Park over the summer. One of the questions up for discussion this evening is whether or not to continue funding city-run public services. If we choose not to do that, the impact of that would be an increase of $19,000 to the older adult services budget and $8,600 to the recreation budget. On this table, we have the capital and neighborhood revitalization projects for the last 5 years. So this is quite opposite from our public services in that the majority of the funding goes towards city infrastructure projects. What I mean by city projects is that they are managed by city staff, typically public works or engineering. Construction projects are still competitively bid with a contractor doing the actual construction. They're just managed through, like I said, city departments. And then the projects on the bottom row there are the external subrecipients that have been funded over the last 5 years. So as we mentioned in January, moving forward, we'll be working toward being more transparent regarding subrecipient goals, performance indicators, and accomplishments. At the end of each fiscal year, we'll be providing a report that will be posted on the website for each subrecipient, and it will include the organization's name, the funding amount, the proposed outcome, which is basically what they told us they're going to accomplish with the funds, the actual outcome, and then a brief evaluation narrative including successes or an explanation as to why they didn't meet their goal, and if staff recommends future funding. So here's what the process will look like moving forward. Today, we're holding the first of 2 public hearings. On February 23rd, pending approval, staff will release the CDBG RFP. At the end of March, staff will review applications and prepare recommendations on funding. During the month of April, staff will conduct one-on-one meetings with council members to review proposals and then draft the annual action plan. Also in April, we will issue the 30-day public notice, notifying the public that the draft action plan is out for review. And then on May 20th, staff will return to City Council for a public hearing to present the annual action plan for adoption and submittal to HUD in August. Oops. This concludes our presentation. Mayor, at this time, we ask that you receive public comments, close the public hearing, and then open up for council discussion.
Then that's what we'll do.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. No public comments have been submitted, but does anyone here wish to speak to this particular item? Yes, you may come forward.
Sorry, I'll come in to fill one out.
Oh, you're good. You're totally fine.
So, if it's possible, could you just go back one slide? Oh, no, I meant, the percentage slide was right, was the right one.
The percentage slide?
The one that had all that one. So my own public comment would be, I would really like to see more than 15% in public service, more than what is admin. It just makes sense to me. And also for the capital, I think before we fix up the house that's in Grape Day Park with federal funds, that we should take care of the people that don't have houses. That's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Did anyone else wish to speak on this item before we close the public hearing? Yes, please come forward.
I just have a question about the library. You guys putting 40,000 for what? This is just trust fund?
Oh,
To
that was
relocate
a
library?
that was a separate item. That was already approved.
Yeah,
That's
but you mentioned that in here, right? So I have a question, why the libraries are not operating? The 2 libraries that you guys have, there's no, are you guys going to relocate? Are you guys going to close it?
So this is a
Unfortunately.
separate. So I'll speak to it. Thank you for that. So generally, public comments.
Yeah,
You can,
yeah, I
Oh,
bring this over here because,
One moment. So
Oh.
this isn't necessarily back and forth. Essentially, the library is closed for construction. There's one open at the mall right now. But
yeah, but I
this,
think they mentioned about trust fund or something about libraries. Something like that.
no, that was on the agenda as a separate item. So if-
Separate, not yet?
already approved. It was already approved
Okay,
earlier. So
I'm
not
just,
this item.
because it's construction, right? You're talking about construction development.
This is about the CDBG item right now.
Not development?
One of us or a staff
Okay.
member would be happy to talk to you
Okay,
after the
then
meeting.
I'll wait for that.
Yeah. I just want to make sure, is there anyone else who wished to speak on this particular item? All right, seeing none, Mr. Mayor.
All right, we'll close the public hearing, and I'll open it up to the city council for questions and comments. And just jump in.
So can I ask a question of staff? Can you relate what the requirements are that on the public services amount, that it has to be, it's a fixed amount by the federal government?
Yes, so the public service allocation and the admin allocation, the maximum amount that you can fund there is the 20% and the 15%. You cannot go over that.
Well, thank you. Was that it, City Manager? Thank you for the presentation. As always, you guys do an awesome job. Can you break down the capital? I'm not sure if you had a slide on that, but I just want to see a little bit more details on that, on the breakdown. Okay, can you kind of just provide some background or some educate us on how do we get these categories as opposed to the other ones from prior ones that we've seen? I guess just kind of a background on how we decided on that, I think would be really good for us.
Well, typically, city staff identify projects that need to be done, or through our neighborhood groups, we identify projects that need to be done, such as like the sidewalk infill project. And then they are vetted through a group of staff. We have a capital subcommittee, well, I don't know if it's subcommittee, but a capital groups committee that we take projects to. And then projects that seem like they are viable will come through the application process. So the CDBG application, or the RFP that we're talking about putting out, that is for internal and external subrecipients. So they would come in through that process.
Was there anything that was presented that you were all considering that didn't make this list that was kind of on the cusp? Do you know? I know it's a very specific question.
We have had projects in previous years that were requested very large amounts of money that were denied just because maybe they weren't, not just, but maybe they weren't project ready. So we also have to remember that we have a timeliness test that we have to meet with CDBG. So we want to make sure that projects that we select are ready to go and that money can be spent. So they've been denied for those reasons, and or that they're asking maybe for too much funding. And so we wouldn't want to allocate a majority of the funding to one project, as we like to spread that around. And so that kind of leads into one of the questions about, do we want to limit how much we fund per grant application? I can give you our recommendation if you would like, or if you want to, I don't know if you want to.
Yeah, that would be great, because that was actually part of my next question. And then the other part was, for the ones that didn't qualify for whatever reason, I'm assuming that they were told why they didn't qualify or what they needed to be adjusted in order to qualify.
Yes.
Yes, okay.
Yes, we respond to everyone that applies.
Okay. Then, yeah, would you be able to provide like the cap of the one that you had just mentioned for each project?
So what we're recommending for public services is that we provide, actually I do have a, I believe I have it. What we're recommending for public services is a cap from between $10,000 and $50,000. Typically, what we have awarded in the past on the low end is $8,600, and on the higher end is $35,000. We have had requests in the like $70,000 range, so that's why we bumped it up to about 50. But we feel that 50 allows for us to still be able to fund multiple programs. Also, putting these limitations on what a subrecipient can request, it just creates a clear expectation, because we have had some people that have, like I said, they've put in an application, it's been too high, especially for public services.
Has there been a time when it was high, but we chose to fill some of it?
Yes.
Along with other programs?
Yes.
So even if it was capped, we could still divvy it up any way we wanted?
Technically, yes.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
so a couple things for council to consider. I think historically on the capital side, the issue has been timeliness of expenditure, and that's why it's gravitated to city programs. On the other side of the fence, one of the challenges is the available funding versus the needs of the program. And traditionally, the program has tried to fund as many programs as it possibly can. That has been one of the drivers in this. But last year, there was one proposal that was proposing to take the entire public services budget. And unfortunately, that they didn't understand any limitations. So by establishing a limitation, you're also helping guide the applicant and having them put forward a realistic proposal if the council still wants to fund an array of programs. So you're communicating to them the limits, and then that helps them craft a proposal. If you don't put any limits out there, they struggle with what am I writing, what's my potential award amount. You're providing a structure for a dialogue by establishing these limits with the applicants.
Quick question again, the graffiti removal, that program was moved to the general fund, right?
That's correct.
So we're just not, it's not that we're not doing it anymore, it's just in the general fund?
That's right.
What were the two items that you said we could move somewhere else? $19,000 and $8,600?
Yes, that was for the public services. So that is the question on whether to continue to fund internal service departments. So it's, if you look at your 25-26, it's the mobile recreation, which is a free summer camp out at Grove Park. That funding is $8,600. That would hit the recreation's general fund budget if it was removed from here. And then the senior resource program out at the Park Avenue Community Center, and that was $19,500.
Just to make sure I'm hearing this correctly, we're not talking about eliminating those, just moving them to the general fund?
Correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
I would support that.
So I would just say, council, just be aware that that means that you're increasing your general fund obligation, which is already stretched. So part of the reason they're in here, part of this is to provide transparency. I'm not saying you can direct us to do that.
Understood.
The challenge is that there are impacts then to the general fund budget that correspond to that, right? Now, there potentially could be other outlets. I'm not saying don't do it. The dollar amount is about $36,000 in total. I'm just saying, just understand the implication of doing that.
Understood. All right, thank you.
Would you like me to go back to the questions?
Are you done? Well, I just want to comment real quick that I really like, as far as, because here on the agenda in page 156, just implementing the funding range will allow the city to support multiple organizations, ensuring a more equitable distribution of available funds, which I really support. Have you found, or has there been a response, more applications or inquiries because of this going out to the public, or has it not yet been put out?
Not yet, but I mean, as soon as, if we get approval and the RFP goes out next week, I'm sure that's when the inquiries will start coming in.
And also, I ask this question all the time, as far as outreach, I know economic development had a really good success with using Cal State San Marcos, was it business or marketing group going out there, and they provided, I think it was free outreach. I don't know if that's something that maybe would be available, because they had close to 500 people responded to the survey. So I think maybe that might be something that we can look into as well.
Yeah, we can definitely look into that. We typically have in-person public meetings around these items, and we try to have them different times and different areas of town. So we'll typically have 2 meetings at least to discuss once we get in all of our applications.
Yeah. Well, I like your recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, question about the senior resources. So we're no longer doing senior transportation?
No, we don't fund, in 22, 23, they stopped funding transportation and nutrition.
Okay, got it. And then remind me what the senior resources is.
So it's a staff person that works over at the Park Avenue Community Center who provides resources regarding food stability, transportation, maybe assistance with filling out legal documents. It's a referral service.
Okay, so it's a staff that kind of serves as a navigator on site?
Yes, I guess you could call her that,
Okay.
yeah.
And then the, if we go back to the neighborhood cleanups, I had a question about that. I think it's on a different slide. Okay.
Yeah.
Here, the neighborhood cleanup, is this the block, kind of when you have the cleanup block party with the neighborhood groups?
Yes.
I know we do that we've been doing that for a few years there. So how much is that for the annual budget for that? Because I know some of those groups are no longer active, and so I don't know if we're keeping the same budget, if we spend all that money.
Is 50, right? 50? The budget is currently at $50,000.
Okay,
And
do-
that pays for our staff person who facilitates that program. It also pays for, we host the neighborhood leadership forums quarterly. We're hoping to expand the program and bring back a lot of the things that we used to do, which is like block parties, more social events for the neighborhood groups to get people more engaged.
Okay, good. I was gonna say, and I'm glad our Development Services Director is here because I mentioned to him the neighborhood groups and how they were very active at one point. And so I would like to see, if we are to continue those, that there is more engagement, because I do think that is a lot of money for, just the same neighborhoods kind of getting free cleanup service when there's a lot. We have street stewards now. I organize monthly cleanups in my district, which includes a lot of the areas where the neighborhood groups are. So I feel like there's a lot of additional resources for neighborhood cleanups, and I would like, if we're going to budget money for that, that the neighborhood leadership forums include maybe even more folks than just our neighborhood groups, because it takes a lot to get the neighborhood groups going. And I just feel it's a great setup, like the whole idea and organizational structure of it's wonderful, but I think there's a way to really engage a lot more residents that maybe aren't organized neighborhood groups, or maybe in the future could form some. So I would like to just see more residents participate in that beyond the neighborhood groups. Then I would be supportive of that if we could expand beyond the existing neighborhood groups.
Yeah, I agree with that. Our funding can be used in low-income neighborhoods across Escondido. So I think as long as we're following that and it's meeting one of our goals and a national objective, I think that's absolutely a possibility.
Wonderful. And I know that you host those leadership forums quarterly, so then anyone from Escondido can attend those, and there you can identify the neighborhoods that they live in and if they would be eligible for the programs. So I'd like to get those back on my calendar so I could spread the word about those. You answered the question about the 20% admin and the 15%. So I remember what the city manager was mentioning last time. I don't know if it was this last year or the year before. We did have someone who submitted an application and they were denied because it was, the amount was not something that we could offer. So I'm glad that now we're upfront before they spend the time completing the application. I think that was a good move for us to be more transparent about the process and make sure only people who qualify and have projects for qualifying apply. That's all my questions. Thank you so much.
Right, I had a question about the 19,000, the 8,000 too. My concern is around that our seniors are among our most vulnerable neighbors, so I'm glad to hear that this is not about cutting it, but that the possibility of, or the discussion about moving it to a different fund. So, and also with the $8,000 regarding the mobile recreation. Because these are opportunities for our families that many times can't afford any other type of recreation, especially during the summer. So once again, I'm happy to hear that this is a discussion about possibly moving them, but not canceling them. Should we put a limit to answer your question? Yes, I would agree with that. I think it would be something very positive, because I do recall us having that discussion about some of the requesters putting amounts of money that just couldn't be done. And this way it will provide an opportunity to be able to for them to figure out how they can work with what is available. But I would like that if there is a need that they would like to request additional funds, that there's a process how they can do that. Okay, this is what you need to do in order to be able to request an additional amount because of. So I would like some explanation on the form so they could do that. The percentages, that was explained to us, I remember last time, that these were what were the reasons for that. I would vote to reaffirm the plan as it stands. And looking at your questions, pretty much I think that's it. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Did we answer all your questions?
I believe so. If I could maybe just go through these really quickly, just to make sure that we're all on the same page here. So we're going to reaffirm the priorities as they are. How about the RFP? Should there be a focus on a specific priority or keep it open to all of the priorities?
If we keep it open to all the priorities, we can still
You can
allocate towards one specific one.
That's correct.
Okay, then I would be for keeping it open.
Okay.
Okay.
And then the allocation process, we will stick with the 20% admin, 15 public service, 65 capital. Should funding limits be placed on the grant? We're saying yes, right? I just want to be clear that it's only for public services and it will be $10,000 to $50,000. We are leaving the capital side open. And that is to maintain our flexibility with spending those funds in a timely manner. And then should CDBG continue to fund departments, city departments? That's still kind of up in the air.
It is for me. Go ahead.
I have a question about that. I mean, those are important programs to have. Is it, and I don't know if the city manager has insight to this, but is it better for us to use CDBG funds because it's maybe harder to find funding outside of the general fund for that? Or are there other grants that we could use for that?
We could explore options in the budget process. I would recommend continuing to have them apply, and then that can be part of the decision-making process as we go through it, right? I mean, but I wanted it transparent that there has been a tradition of funding city operations. I think where the challenge might be is on the capital side and quickly expensing those dollars. But as people learn about the program and becomes more clarity, there might be more applicants in that space. So I would recommend to council that you visit that when you start to go to the award part of the process, and that will be closer to the budget process. And so then we can talk about where potentially to move those internal requests at that time.
So it seems like waiting gives us more options, allowing them to continue under this process, but then later on we can decide to fund them differently.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great.
Great. All right.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Move on to current business, item 14, which is overview of Senate Bill 707.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to get the agenda pulled up one moment. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, honorable council members. I have three presentations. I'm going to go back to back to back, so we'll just kind of go through the first one right now. First, we're going to review the SB 707, which is a new law that's going to impact the Brown Act as well as our council meetings. Real quick, going to go over an overview of the SB 707, what the law is and why it matters. In addition, we're going to look at the impact on council meetings, the operational changes, and a resolution then proposing as well regarding technological disruption policy. Starting with SB 707. SB 707 is one of the most significant updates to the Brown Act in recent memory. It expands access to local government meetings. It modernizes participation. It also strengthens transparency and reduces barriers for those who want to participate in our council meetings. SB 707 simply reflects the principle that public meetings must be meaningfully accessible to all residents, and this will have some direct impacts on our council meetings. And there's two phases of the implementation that we're going to review. The Escondido City Council qualifies under SB 707 as an eligible legislative body, and they will be directly impacted. To clarify, the requirements that you're going to see in phase 2 do not apply to our boards and commissions. They do apply to the City Council. Phase 1 already has been implemented. You recall I sent an email to yourselves as well as all of our board and commission members of the Brown Act and all the updates that corresponded with that for SB 707. There are some updated terms that have been referenced on our website as well as on our agenda. That has all been taken care of. Phase 2 is where we're going to have mandatory remote public attendance required at our council meetings, so two-way, either audio or visual. If you could think back to when we had some of these experiences during COVID, similar but a bit more expansive. Equal opportunity for public comment, so remote participation as well as in-person will be treated exactly the same. A formally adopted technology distribution policy or disruption policy, which we'll be talking about later. Language access, so translated agendas and instructions. To clarify, all of our agendas currently are translated on the city's website via Google Translate, so you can have any sort of agenda you wish on there. And then another requirement is outreach to underrepresented communities, which we're working on a strategy for that. Clerk's office is ensuring compliance with both phases. Now getting into how this directly impacts our council meetings. So effective July 1st, 2026, we're going to require remote public attendance. And that means all meetings are open to provide a two-way telephonic or two-way audiovisual access with limited exceptions. Equal public comment, like I said, same public comment for those participating remotely or those who are in person. We have the technology policy we're talking about a little later. Language access, so all the agendas must be translated, as well as the instructions to participate, and then further community outreach. All of this is going to begin July 1. The operational impacts are pretty substantial. Because this increases some of the administrative and technological complexity, it also opens the city up and every other city in California up to compliance risk. So you're going to have to be myself managing simultaneous management of in-person and remote speakers, equal timekeeping for those who are in the queue, reliable redundancy in case we do experience technology disruption, documenting that we're doing our good faith effort to make sure that things are operating properly, and accessibility and language support. So trying to be proactive on this front to make sure that we are in compliance and that way we have redundancies in place, and that leads us to our technology disruption policy. This is the resolution before you this evening. The government code requires we have procedures for recessing during remote access disruptions, and we're making a good faith effort to restore the service, and then we're requiring that the findings before the proceedings be without remote access. In a nutshell, if we were to experience a technology disruption because those participating remotely are being treated the same as those in the room, we would have to recess the meeting and potentially end the meeting if we are not able to get the online version back up online. So we're trying to build in redundancies on the back end to prevent that. Yes?
Can I ask you a question about that?
Sure.
I don't mean to interrupt this whole presentation.
No, please.
But,
yeah, question.
During COVID on the school board, we had some times where the audience was actually, the software was hacked.
Yes.
And so on the other end, they sort of took over the meeting. We could still go on, but do we have any kind of safety measures included in this that would protect the audience from that?
Yeah, so we have better safety measures now. Technology has advanced.
Okay.
Whereas previously it was just utilizing like a Zoom or a Teams.
Okay.
I'll tell you about the technology in one moment, which is a bit more sophisticated. But even if there was a hack or a Zoom bomb or something like that, we would still have to recess the meeting because it would be a disruption. The disruption doesn't matter where it originates. It would just be slowing down the proceedings. Yeah. Did anyone else have a question before I proceed? I know I've covered a bit because I'll answer any more. The resolution specifically will define technology disruption and remote access, requires a minimum recess period before proceeding, and establish service restoration procedures. For clarification, this resolution it came from the California Municipal Clerks Association, so this is not unique to the city of Escondido. It is what they have recommended that all cities adopt. So I just want to clarify that for general law cities. The adoption ensures we're complying by July 1. Now, here is the implementation strategy. Specifically, we're proposing utilizing public input, and it's a cloud-based software platform, and it's specifically tailored for SB 707 compliance. It provides hybrid meeting access. It does speaker queue management, and then we have live captioning of the meetings, as well as digital translation, redundant access, part of that security that we're talking about, and then automated records. The County of San Diego, for the Board of Supervisors, already utilizes this technology. They've been doing so for a couple of years now, and it is something that is fairly intuitive, not just for the administrative end myself, but for the public to be able to participate via telephone or virtual. So we will be going through a process over the next few months where I will be training on this, getting accustomed to it. That way, hopefully by the time July rolls in, we're doing this in as seamless a manner as possible. Obviously, there could be disruptions that could occur in the future. Moving on, the administrative oversight. So I'll be responsible, the clerk's office will be responsible for publishing the policy if adopted this evening, integrating the procedure into our council meeting operations. This will likely mean that I will be coming forward at a future time to update the council policies and rules of procedure and integrating this language into it, coordinating with various departments to make sure everything is aligned, and then providing training to staff, and then monitor the compliance. The fiscal impact is not before you this evening. The contract with public input is approximately $21,000 annually, and that is going to be coming at a mid-year budget adjustment at a future date to the full council. So the recommendation before you this evening is to adopt the resolution and then just to receive and file the report. And I'm here for any questions that you might have.
Do we have any public comments on this item?
None.
Okay. I'll turn it over to the council. I don't have any questions or comments. If somebody would like to make a motion, please do.
I have a question.
Sure.
Can we go back to the slide of the phase 1, phase 2?
Yes.
So when I read this, I understood it as if there's an interruption. So it also applies without interruption that now there will be remote access regardless.
Yes.
So it kind of goes back to the policy we had before.
So slightly different. So in our, and this predates some of the other council members who were on the council. During COVID, we allowed remote participation. However, it was done via electronic submission of comments,
Right, not
which
live.
then I verbally read into the record.
Right.
So it was slightly different. During our redistricting commission hearings, we did provide a way for people to speak virtually, and this is essentially that.
Great.
So it's a more expansive policy. The phase 2, once again, is going to be when we start doing that. Right now, we do not offer that until July.
Right. This is, yeah, I'm really happy about these changes because I was, during COVID, I was the one that asked us to have that remote participation, and we extended it even beyond the pandemic. And I know that our constituents were really appreciative of being able to have those comments read out loud, and now this allows them to call in or use this platform. So, which you said is similar to the county.
Same exact platform.
Yeah, so I love it because it allows more participation from the public. And as far as you mentioned about having working on a strategy for underrepresented communities to participate, do you have an idea of what that's going to look like?
Not at this time.
Okay, so just I don't know if that I'm assuming that we didn't get additional funding for this, right? It becomes,
unfunded state mandate.
Right.
Yeah.
But I have some ideas for that. I think it's a great way to go. But I'm going to give some ideas for not reinventing things. And I know Councilmember Fitzgerald sits on the board now. I used to sit on the APC board, Air Pollution Control District. So they have a really inclusive approach to community engagement. So APCD is a great resource for something that they've already created on how they kind of go about it. So I think there's even colleagues in other agencies that just are used to kind of doing things for and underrepresented communities and bilingual access. So, and I'm also happy to be a resource for that because, again, we don't have extra funding for it, but I think it is important that we do this well and that we tap into already existing resources who've been doing this already.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot in the region that have.
That's a great recommendation. I appreciate that.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Any other questions?
I would like to
Would you like to
comment
make a motion?
Well,
Sure, I'll move to approve.
I'll second it. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, thank you. That's okay. Yes, so I do serve on the Air Pollution Control District, and I'm also an alternate for the mayor on Sandag, and I've seen it work, and it works very well. And even though, what is it, 21-something thousand? How much?
Yeah, about
is-
$21,000 a year. Yeah.
What I've also noticed is that it requires more staff to do this. So I'm wondering, is that something that's being taken into consideration and looked into, and the potential cost of that?
Yeah, so at this stage, I will not be bringing additional staff into council meetings to facilitate this. I'm going to try and train on it as best as possible to be able to facilitate it on my own. However, I will come back to council or to the city manager at a future time if that is not
We don't want you
sustainable.
running away, that's all I'm saying.
No, not at all. I'm
Okay.
happy to run fully into the challenge. I actually want to be able to do it. So.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
So just a couple of questions, clarification. Under Phase 2, mandatory remote public attendance to a audio video. Now, at Sandag, it's only video. I mean only audio. I haven't seen. And then if there's a disruption, we have to pause the meeting until the situation is resolved. So this is my question. If we're using both audio and video, disruption happens, but we can only go to audio. Would we be able to continue our meeting, or is that sufficient to have to postpone our meeting?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. It's a great question. So essentially, you get to choose to go audio or visual. So at this stage, our policy, as I'm going to recommend, is that it will be only audio as opposed to visual. But the way it is written in SB 707, you can go either route. You just need to have a remote participation. And when I say audio, what I mean is you would be calling in through Teams or through Zoom via your phone or smartphone or your computer even, and essentially you're calling in through that. It's just we would not visibly see their face on the screen. So we're still able to get there. And there's less likely going to be technological disruptions when you go audio versus a visual route. That's the rationale behind that recommendation.
Thank you.
Totally.
If there's no other questions or comments, a motion and second is on the, has been made. Please vote.
Yeah. Voting is open. Motion approved, 5-0.
All right, we'll move on to 15, California Voters' Choice Act overview and analysis.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll be presenting this item as well and provide a little background on it. One moment, let me just get back to that screen. Okay. All right, so the purpose of tonight's presentation is to provide an overview of the Voters' Choice Act, what it is, in addition to what prohibited activities there are on Election Day when it comes to surrounding our vote centers, an analysis specific to Escondido for the November 4th, 2025 special election. In addition, some of the intergovernmental coordination I've been conducting with the ROV, Registrar of Voters, as well as some advocacy actions that the council could potentially take moving forward up to your discretion. First, the California Voters' Choice Act works in the following way. First, every registered voter is mailed a ballot. Then, vote by mail or in person at any vote center, so you have the option to choose. Vote centers are open multiple days before an election, whether it's a special election or if it's a general election. And then there's same-day voting registration available, and ballot replacement is available at any center. So to clarify, when it comes to choosing a vote center, you do not have to vote specifically in the city with which you reside. You could vote in the city of San Marcos, city of Oceanside, any vote center. So that's going to be relevant when we start talking a little later on as to why we had some impacts in Escondido specifically. As clarifying, city hosts the vote center, but the Registrar of Voters administers the election. Vote center requirements per the VCA, the Voter Choice Act. It sets a minimum vote center requirement based on election type, and this creates structural disparity. For a general election, you need one vote center per 10,000 registered voters. In comparison, with a special election, you need one vote center per 30,000 registered voters. For instance, in San Diego County, you have 200 vote centers for a general election in comparison to 68 vote centers for a special election. And the November 4th, 2025 election was a special election. The electioneering, where you're prohibited within 100 feet of a polling place, i.e. a vote center, you're prohibited from doing the following activities: advocating for or against a candidate or measure, displaying any sort of campaign signs or apparel, distributing campaign materials, soliciting votes, interfering, intimidating, or harassing voters, photographing or recording a voter's ballot. And exit polling is permitted, but you have to do that beyond the 100-foot boundary, provided it does not impede access. Now, with respect to the election that was held on November 4th, 2025 in Escondido at the Park Avenue Community Center, specifically in the Oak Room, not in the auditorium, there were some structural limitations that were identified. There were the reduced vote center count for special elections, as well as the Park Avenue Community Center drawing disproportionate volume of voters because anyone could vote there, whoever wished to do that. Centrally located, the site is right in the middle of Escondido, along major thoroughfare, had a lot of attendance. The people did not generally take, and the data shows this, do not take advantage of the vote centers being open prior to Election Day. Generally, they're going to vote by mail prior to the election and then come to the polling place or the vote center on Election Day, which is precisely what occurred at the Park Avenue Community Center. Now, with staffing constraints, you're going to note that poll workers are classified as volunteers. So they are paid by stipend, which means they are not subject to minimum wage laws in the state of California. Therefore, the stipends have been unchanged for the last 10 years, and this impacts recruitment, it impacts retention, as well as processing speed and sometimes the skill set of maybe perhaps some of the people who are working at these poll centers. Facility and operational issues. Electioneering activity near the vote center. Once again, we had that occur on November 4th, 2025 at the PACC. This extended also voter wait times were experienced by voters because we had longer lines, higher impact by voter turnout, and then we also had operational challenges. As I previously mentioned, this voting took place at the Park Avenue Community Center Oak Room, which is adjacent to the primary facility. If it had been held in the auditorium, which is a more spacious location, you wouldn't have had quite as long of lines and you'd have better restroom access, which you'll note because of the long lines, voting extended beyond the operating hours of the Park Avenue Community Center, which meant people did not have access to restrooms, which is a problem. So moving it into the auditorium would be preferable because it would give more space and ease of access. So the findings point to systematic factors, not a single operational failure. Now, there's been some intergovernmental coordination that has taken place since this incident occurred. I personally met with the outgoing registrar, Cynthia Pais, as well as the incoming registrar, Sean Brown, and elevated concerns regarding electioneering enforcement, the vote center capacity, staffing, and the facility issues. City manager has designated the city clerk to serve as a city ombudsman with the registrar of voters for vote center site selection within Escondido moving forward. Further, for the June primary, we are already needing to select a site by the end of February in order for the ROV to begin their planning purposes. And I've already met with the ROV multiple times, and I'm having a site visit with them next week at the Park Avenue Community Center, but specifically to have the auditorium reserved for the 10 days leading up to the election and ensuring that there's maximum space and ease of access for voting. Furthermore, we had calls for service on November 4th at the Park Avenue Community Center, and we're seeking clarification from the ROV as to the Escondido Police Department role and the San Diego County Sheriff's role with respect to election enforcement, keeping the peace. There are kind of two different tracks there. So we have a meeting going forward, the chief and myself, to talk with their election supervisor who handles security to clarify that distinction, and that is going to be happening next week. This proactive coordination will ensure that Escondido moving forward has the best possible experience for our voters. Now, policy considerations, and these are actually recommendations that came directly from the San Diego County Registrar of Voters. Cynthia Pais, the outgoing registrar, has extensive experience working directly with the Voters' Choice Act and has noticed some of these challenges, and she has encouraged cities, not just the city of Escondido, but others, to consider putting forward these two following measures. So, as we'll note, compliance with minimum statutory requirements does not guarantee an optimal voter experience. So there's two structural factors that merit our attention and potential action. First, as I previously mentioned, vote center ratio disparity. You have 3 times fewer vote centers for special elections. And as we note, this last special election generated high voter interest and turnout, so it was essentially treated and experienced by those who voting like a general election, not a special election. The proposed action is to send a letter to the California legislature requesting alignment of special elections and general elections for vote center requirements and updating the Voters' Choice Act accordingly, and corresponding with that, potential funding from the state that would go to the registrar as well. Second, stagnant poll worker stipends. As I previously mentioned, these workers are defined as volunteers, not as employees, and in that sense, they have not increased their pay for 10 years at the Board of Supervisors. So a second letter, specifically to the San Diego County Board of Supervisors, requesting review and potential adjustment of poll worker stipends. And that one was specifically from Ms. Pais. She very much wants the board to increase this pay. These actions reflect our bipartisan commitment to improving voter experience within our statutory framework of the VCA. So the conclusion, the City of Escondido remains committed to free and fair elections, safe and accessible voting, orderly vote center operations, and constructive intergovernmental collaboration with the ROV. Through proactive coordination, clear communication, and thoughtful advocacy, Escondido seeks to strengthen voters' confidence in our residents, our volunteers, and our host communities. That is all I have for this particular item, and I'm happy to take any questions that you may have. And I've provided the draft letters to the Board of Supervisors and the legislature to you as well, and they're in the agenda packet.
Do we have any public comments on this item?
None on this item.
Do you have can you go back to the recommendations?
Sure. Yeah.
Because it's to approve both letters and 2 policy.
So to send a letter to the registrar?
Yes.
The Board of Supervisors and the state legislature.
Great.
That's it.
Whatever it takes to make voting easier and more accessible, so I'll go ahead and move to approve those recommendations. I'll ask for a second. Motion and second, and then if there's any questions or comments from the council.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you for this. So I appreciate you, Zach, going and meeting with the ROV. I just want to, some other things that kind of came up. This is great. I support the letters that are, as they're drafted, and I will also commit to personally reaching out to the Secretary of State's office just to also just share the experience about Escondido. I definitely think having, special elections should still be staffed up the same as general elections. But I wanted some things that weren't addressed in there and just some things to consider for future. It says, if we go back to the somewhere you mentioned about electioneering.
Yes.
Okay, see, so there's 100 feet, you're not allowed to, within 100 feet, have electioneering around the voter center entrance. So I did get a call on election day because the Park Avenue Center is in my district. And I went personally because I had heard there was electioneering there, and I had heard that law enforcement had been called. I can't remember if PD got called first or either PD or the sheriffs. I think it was PD who showed up first, or maybe sheriffs or both, before I got there. And I got there, and it was very clear to me that there was someone there with a petition, and he had a sign. It was about Prop 15 and the governor, right? And so it even, I believe, said the governor's name on there. And it was very clear to me. I could just visually see he was at the entrance of where people were entering to the voting center. And it was definitely less than 100 feet. And the petitioner said, I'm happy to move, but I was told I'm in compliance within 100 feet. So he was listening to the poll,
the site
manager,
supervisor.
The site supervisor, thank you. I didn't know what the exact role was. And so then the petitioner said, hey, actually they have a measuring tape. You can go borrow it. Because I broke my measuring tape because it only went like 30 feet. Yeah. So I went and I borrowed their large measuring tape, and they must have been counting in inches because it was about 30 feet. Mm-hmm. So so I said, hey, it's not 100 feet, And so anyways, he did eventually move, but that's because a sheriff came and measured with me. And then once the sheriff kind of said, hey, you're not within 100 feet, he moved. So that was disappointing because the site supervisor didn't enforce electioneering. There was another issue about election observers, and that was not addressed in the presentation. So I don't know kind of if you had a conversation about election observing or if that came up in your meeting, but there were some volunteers who were observing the election, and they had vests on, and they had let the site supervisor know that they were observing the election. The site supervisor was not happy that they were there, and actually called law enforcement on the observers, saying that they were interfering. What happened was, because of the understaffing, people didn't know which line to stand in, because there was a line for people who just took their ballots, who pre-filled them out, and instead of taking them to the mailbox, they were dropping them off at the polling place. And then there was those who didn't have a ballot. Yeah. And so there was two lines, and there was no one at the entrance telling people where to go. So naturally, people, even myself when I was there, was like, oh yeah, please go in here and vote. If you have your ballot, stand in this line, which really they should have had someone outside. So in that case, I would like clarity about what are the rules around election observers, because that's where the big dramas happened, and that's why law enforcement was called. And even then, there was disagreement between what's considered electioneering, where's the voter entrance. Yeah. People were saying, oh, it's 100 feet perimeter, right? And these were the questions that couldn't get answered by the ROV, they couldn't get answered by law enforcement. Yeah. The site supervisor was not in a good mood and not very friendly. And there was just a lot of tension. And then also what wasn't mentioned, and I just want to lift this up, there was an area in the front entrance where disabled voters could go vote, and they stay in their car, and someone comes out and brings them the machine or a ballot to vote. There was someone there, I was there for a few hours. There was a family there for an hour and a half, And I had gone in and said, hey, there's somebody that needs assistance. And it wasn't again until the sheriff came and I said, can you help me out here? Go talk to that site supervisor because she's not listening and they're not bringing anyone out here. And it wasn't until the sheriff went in there that this person finally came out and allowed this disabled voter to vote. So those are, I think, really problematic. And it's very problematic that the site supervisor only pretty much listened to the law enforcement officer. And anyways, I wanted that to go on record. And I don't know if you had that conversation with the ROV as well, or if they brought up anything regarding the disabled voting, the election observers, because those were really big factors of the day as well.
Thank you, Councilmember Martinez. I could speak to a few of those things. With respect to personnel matters associated with the ROV, I will not be speaking to those. But with respect to what occurred on that election day, there was a gentleman who had set up to gather signatures for a petition, and he was situated on the walkway. For clarification with the public, I did come out to go view that, and I saw him sitting there. I spoke with the site supervisor on site and asked if he was in compliance with the 100 feet, and she said yes. So at that point, they are administering the election, and I stepped aside. As it pertains to the structural issues I've previously identified with staffing limitations and also this particular site, if anyone is familiar with it, it is adjacent to the Park Avenue Community Center, and there's essentially two entrances. You have a wall which is open, and then you have a door where the voting is actually happening. So I think the discrepancy is where is the entrance and where do you count the 100 feet from? And I think the site supervisor was counting from the door entrance where people were coming in to vote, as opposed to where that wall is, which you're referring to. So I think that created some confusion. That will be rectified moving forward with the new site because you only have one entrance into the auditorium space, and that'll be simpler moving forward. But with respect to the election observers, referenced here is interfering, intimidating, or harassing voters. Election observers could fall into interfering with voters because they are talking to them and kind of directing them accordingly, so that they are actually engaging potentially in interfering activities which would fall into electioneering. That being said, the gentleman who was doing that and the individuals who were doing the election observing, had they not been engaging with the voters, that wouldn't classify that as long as they're within 100 feet. And for him, if he was beyond the 100 feet, then he's well within his right to do so. So it's really a matter of clarification from the ROV as to where the 100 feet originates.
Okay, and then I think for future, it would be good to maybe mark that, like this is the 100-foot mark, you know?
We can provide that recommendation, but once again, that's the ROV.
Yeah.
So if council wants to write an additional letter or some other suggestion letter, a little bit of the challenge here is, I think Zach's tried to illustrate, is you have essentially folks that are getting per diem from probably a period of time, because this predates the most recent law, where you were voting in your neighborhood, in your community, and so they have not updated their procedures to meet that. Also, if you look at their flyer, they conveniently say a report electioneering, and they throw every law enforcement agency's number out there, which is not a very productive way to engage with your partners on what the expectation on enforcement is, right? So I think we've noted that, we're approaching that, but some of these issues really are personnel-driven issues, and we have a limitation on what we can do with the ROV as it relates to personnel issues. So it's not that we're not ignoring these, it's just that there's clear issues that the ROV does have to deal with. We've raised those issues with the ROV, but they are the enforcer and establisher of those rules and interpreter of that rule. And a little bit what you're hearing, what we're trying to do is improve site selection. That's why Zach is now the official liaison ombudsman with the ROV, as opposed to where they were contacting other staff who rent facilities so that we can get some more interpretation in this space. But the ROV is telling you they think that the issue is related to rate of pay. I might argue that there may need to be even deeper looking at professionalizing of voter. If you're going to have this level of enforcement, have these requirements, it seems a little odd that you would hire part-time personnel to manage those, that endeavor.
Thank you, Zach. I definitely want to bring up, I definitely have additional questions that I want to make sure for June aren't an issue. So I plan to also reach out to the ROV, and I did want to hear kind of what your conversations were about those issues, especially around the observer. So there wasn't a lot of information. There's not any public information about that, but I think with what's happening federally around possibly requiring IDs for voting, there's going to be a need for observers making sure that people can vote because it's a big issue. So anyways, definitely something I want to follow up with. Thank you for bringing this to presenting and for meeting with the ROV and for, you know, becoming our official liaison. I think that's a great idea. And I will follow up with the ROV, the new ROV, and ensure that I can get some clarity around some other issues.
Thank you, Councilor Martinez.
Thank
And just to
you.
clarify one point for you on that with respect to the electioneering, a simple way of looking at it is as people think of election observing as like looking at ballots as they're being, you know, filled out or looking at that. That is not what is considered election observing. It's outside of the facility beyond 100 feet. The ROV, though, does provide a logic and accuracy test that they allow the public and the clerks and council to attend, where you can actually see their internal operations of how they process ballots and make sure everything is fine. So I can, moving forward, I receive those invitations, but I can forward those to council if you'd like to attend those. Those are prior to each election, so if you want to.
Thanks for that note.
Totally.
So thank you, City Clerk Beck, for taking the time to work on this, because this was a huge issue. I received a phone call early on regarding this. I contacted the police department, and then things began unraveling. And recently, I had a conversation with the observer group last week, actually, regarding all of this. So I understand that this is a lot of this has to do with the personnel issues and falls under the jurisdiction of the ROV. And but I'm glad that we now have someone that officially will be able to represent the city and the interests of the city, because the interest of the city, I believe, is that there is accessibility and equal access for everyone to be able to vote. And I would not want to hear again that there were no bathroom access. I mean, all kinds of things like that. Disabled people wanting to go to, and they couldn't, et cetera, et cetera. Now, I do have a question. Can we decide as council and say, if you want to rent the senior center, the Park Avenue, we're willing to rent, but only the auditorium?
So to clarify, like with it, so the voting would take place within the context of a single room, not multiple rooms. But as far as reserving the entire site, to clarify for the Park Avenue Community Center, I've already had discussions with the staff over there, and they are, it would not impact operations with any existing activities they have if we were to move forward with scheduling the election in the auditorium for the set period of time for the June primary as well as for the November election. So as it currently stands, it wouldn't impede operations, and they do have mechanisms in place for overtime, which is where council would potentially come in for funding elements. But as it relates to operational impacts, right now there would be limited, and they would be planning moving forward because they know when elections are coming, and even if there's a special election, it has to be set on a certain date, so they can plan accordingly.
Okay, I just want to get ahead of it.
Yeah.
That if there's an issue, you say, well, these are the rooms that we've approved that we know would be enough, right? And that would have all the resources necessary.
Yeah.
So that's what I was referring to.
And thank you. And to that end, I'll also let the council know, I was able to get the ROV in contact with the school district as well, so they are potentially going to utilize Del Lago Academy as an additional vote center. So we have a little bit of a spreading out of facilities within the community, but that is not under the city's jurisdiction, it's a school district, so. For your clarity.
Wonderful. I'll be reaching out to them also.
Cool.
Thank you.
Yeah. We already had public comment. I'd leave it to.
I'm willing to accept the
okay,
public
yeah,
comment.
if you want to come forward into the microphone so people hear it. Yeah, thank you. Sure.
Thank you, Zach.
Yeah, of course.
One of the things I wanted clarification on
Sure.
when you speak with the ROV or whoever you speak with, because you keep mentioning 100 feet from the building. But from what I read on the law, it's also within an immediate vicinity of a voter. So if a voter is if the line is so long, the electioneering person who's doing electioneering could be 100 feet from the building, but right next to voters. And from what I understand, they're not allowed to be next to any voters. They have to be the way I see it, 100 feet from the voter. But maybe that's some type of clarification you can bring when you speak with the powers that be and all the cops and everything you need to do. So
Definitely.
that was one of the biggest things, I think, too, that
Yeah.
day, besides all the other things that were mentioned, is
Yeah.
how far are they allowed to be next to voters, not just the building, because the line could be very, very long.
Yeah, exactly. That's
Okay,
a,
thank
I'll
you so
clarify
much.
that.
Appreciate
Yeah.
it.
Thank you, thank you. And I think that's also one of the benefits we're going to find by moving into the auditorium is that no electioneering can happen inside of the building. So we won't run into that, likely run into that issue moving forward.
One question I have, just a technical question. Can we
Yeah.
make sure all of our names are on this?
Sure, yeah, I can do that.
Perfect.
Happy to.
Councilmember Fitzgerald, any questions? Okay, if there's nothing else, there's been a motion and second. Please vote.
Voting is open. Motion approved, 5-0.
Awesome. On to item 16, which is the Board and Commission term extensions and reappointments.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have one more presentation for you. This is a bit briefer in nature, so let me move on to it. So this is for Board and Commission term extensions as well as reappointments. Moving forward this evening, we have 7 Board and Commissioners who have terms that are set to expire the end of March. This scheduled expiration is part of the municipal code. They're already set that way. However, we had originally planned to have interviews scheduled on March 11th for our board and commission candidates. Mayor White is going to be traveling to Washington, D.C. on city business at that time, so we are proposing to extend the terms until the end of May. This will allow us to conduct interviews on April 15th and subsequent time for council then to take their time to appoint new members to the boards or commissions or reappoint. And this brief extension will allow the current commissions to keep meeting in April and May. Now, the city clerk's office recommendation is to extend the terms of the following commissioners through the end of May. On the Library Board of Trustees, that'd be Maribel Cruz Reyes, as well as Francis Bova. Public Art Commission, Natalie Martinez and Patricia Spann, as well as Jacqueline Kelleher. And then for the Transportation and Community Safety Commission, David Cazares, as well as Rachel Cassabaum. And this will be 7 members across those 3 bodies, just for a 2-month extension. Now, for the mayor's recommendation is to request the city council ratify the following reappointments to full terms on the 2 different boards. Planning Commission, 4-year terms for Barry Spear, Carrie Mercaro, and Corey Gustafson, who currently serve on the Planning Commission. This will set their terms to expire March 31st, 2030. Wild to say 2030, yeah. And then Building Advisory Appeals Board would be 2-year terms for Barry Spear, Merritt Gorney, George Corey, as well as Scott McColl, and those will be for 2-year terms expiring in 2028. 7 reappointments across 2 bodies, and this is the ratification requested by Mayor White. Why this matters, specifically on the clerk side, is that full participation, we need to have these commissions continue to meet, so they have their continuity of operations, approving all their procedures, as well as being able to continue to advise the council on a number of pressing issues, specifically on the transportation side of things, which is a high priority for council right now. The recommendation, approve term extensions for the terms that I referred to, and then the reappointments per mayor's recommendations. Those are all that I have right now.
Do we have any public comments on this?
No.
Quick question. I spoke to each member of the Planning Commission. They all said they wanted to be reappointed. Did you happen to reach out to the Building Advisory Board?
They're all willing to be reappointed.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Any questions or comments?
I would like to bifurcate the item because, so for the first, I understand because of timing and just the busyness, and we did this last year, extending terms to make sure, because we're still going to have an application process for boards and commissions, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
So I understand just for scheduling purposes where we don't want the terms to expire and then there be gaps and quorum issues. But we're still going to have interviews, we're still going to put out an application, and tradition is, and this is something that has come up before with the Planning Commission, where we drifted away from process, and it caused some tension with my colleagues, and then we decided that we were gonna follow everyone gets interviews, we open up the application process, so I think we should continue to follow that and not make an exception. We should still, including for the Planning Commission. I think for the building ones, I would be okay with that because that's the commission that doesn't really meet. It's only met once in years. Yeah. And we never have more applicants for those, so I feel like that is justifiable. But I feel for Planning Commission, we should still go through an application process because I'm pretty sure some of these commissioners on the other boards probably want to get reappointed too, so why would we only be making an exception for the Planning Commission? So either I'd like to bifurcate the vote on this item because I don't support changing the process for the Planning Commission appointments. I'd like that to go through the process of applications and interviews and then deciding and having us chime in on that.
My only response to that is, I've already spoken to those planning commissioners. They want to be reappointed, and to invite people in to interview for something that they're not going to get would be, quite frankly, a waste of their time and a waste of our time. So I'm still supportive of doing this all in one. And to your comment about the other boards, there are vacancies, like current vacancies on the
Transportation and Public Art Commission.
yeah,
and
so
then on the
that we
library.
have to do interviews for those, regardless, even if everybody that's there currently wants to be reappointed. So I'm okay with this recommendation, but I'd like to hear from everybody else.
Not yet.
I'll move to approve this recommendation.
I'll second.
So if I understand correctly, term extensions, there's no issue with. The ratifying of the reappointments, the reappointments are for those that only came in for a very short period of time, right?
Only one of those, Corey Gustafson, was appointed because of a vacancy. The other two they're finishing their terms.
Okay. For some reason, I thought that all of them were with, had just come in recently, because I was like, with Corey, well, we just interviewed him.
Barry and Carrie have both been there for 2 terms already, and that's part of the thought process behind this is I think everybody else is relatively new, and so reappointing everybody right now when we have I think a pretty functioning planning commission is probably the best thing.
Okay. All right, thank you.
So I just have a process question because I support the extension of the terms, but I don't support the second part. Are we all combining?
Yeah.
If we're just the motion includes both as a package deal, then I would have to vote no on it. But I just want to say for the record that it's not opposing any of the candidates. It's not opposing the extension of terms till May, but it's more of changing I don't want to change the process for how we do planning commission. And one of the things you said, Mayor, was why waste people's time if they're going to get reappointed? It still requires all of us to vote on that time. So it's not a unilateral appointment. We'd all have to say yes to it, unless you've had conversations ahead of time with my colleagues stating that they'd all support your motion, but.
No, I haven't.
That's
But I would
kinda
be
what it
willing,
looks like.
if the original maker of the motion wants to divide this into 2, I would support that.
I would prefer that.
What's your request?
We would still vote as it stands, but I want to be able to vote yes on the extension of the commissioners to May because of the, timing, so there's no gap, but I just don't support the second part. And I don't want to just say no to both, you know what I'm saying? It's just no to partial.
So how would we, I guess, how would
We'd just vote twice, or we'd vote twice.
Yeah, we'd be voting on the 2 items before you. One would be the reappointments, and then the other would be the
Just
extensions.
putting it into 2 votes.
Okay, then
Is that okay?
I'll do it.
Thank you.
We'll split it up into 2 votes.
So to clarify then, for the first motion is to approve the term extensions. So this
Yes.
is for library, public art, and transportation until May.
The first vote has a motion and second. This is to approve the term extensions. Go ahead and vote on that one.
Voting is open.
And that's for May 31st, that's
May
right?
31st,
Thank you.
2026, yeah.
So, yes.
All right, motion approved, 5-0. And then just one moment, let me get our,
And then the second one is for ratification of the reappointments, which also has a motion and second. Please vote.
voting is open. Motion approved, 4-1, Martinez, no.
Did it vote for me?
Yeah, mine kind of froze. too.
I didn't vote.
It's showing on my screen as voting.
Well, I just submitted one now,
All right,
so.
let me, yeah, that's what it's showing. Second one's 4-1, yeah, that's what I have.
Okay,
But we could, yeah.
great. Does anybody have anything they'd like to add to a future agenda? You look like you were reaching for your microphone. No? Okay.
Move it down.
Then we'll move on to council member subcommittee reports and other reports. Councilmember Martinez. Council member. I almost said deputy mayor.
So yes, it's been a couple weeks since we've seen each other. Hope you all had a nice Valentine's Day. I participated in the Love Esco Day. I had a booth for Earth Day Escondido. It was an awesome event. Over 70 booths were there, and there was an unveiling of a new mobile stage that was gifted by the Rotary Club of Escondido to the Center for the Arts, and they used it for that day. So amazing mobile stage, so I was really excited to see that at the unveiling. I also participated in a Valentine's Day fundraiser for the board that I sit on behalf of the city, the San Diego River Park JPA. The meeting, we usually meet once a month for Friday. They canceled the meeting, but we're still having a budget subcommittee, which I sit on, so I will be on there. And then just save the date for Earth Day Escondido, which is April 4th. Application is out now for vendors, exhibitors, and volunteers. And tomorrow evening at 6 o'clock, I will be hosting a virtual forum, Know Your Rights Forum, en español, so conocer sus derechos, conozca sus derechos en español, un foro. So if any of you have residents who would like to get information of Know Your Rights around immigration enforcement, I am hosting a virtual webinar tomorrow. You can sign up through my social media. Thank you.
I'll come back to you. I see your writing. All right, go ahead.
All right. So Love Esco Day was, I think, it was really successful. It's really good to see that things continue to get better every year, and more participation is. There's more participants throughout the community. We had a utility subcommittee meeting as well. That was an interesting one. We had regarding water, and it was. There's going to be challenges throughout the county, definitely, regarding water, but I think there's things that we could definitely tackle. We had a meeting for the Clean Energy Alliance. We were looking into the possibility of looking into nuclear energy as an option for the county. Not just that, but we are also looking at different forms of energy, renewable and clean energy. I think it's really important to really discuss those options. We had an interesting meeting with a business owner who owned a crematorium here. She does awesome work. It's really interesting to see. I've never seen anybody be cremated before, and that was my first time. So really interesting. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those. And as always, thank you to my community for the privilege of serving.
That was Silver Linings Crematorium, and it was much different than any other crematorium. Not that I've been to a bunch, but different than any other crematorium. And the owner, I forgot her name, but she was Tatiana? Yeah, okay, Tatiana. She was like the sweetest woman. She's exactly the person you want to deal with when you're going into that kind of a situation. But last week, KOCT in Oceanside hosted myself, Rebecca Jones, John Franklin, and Esther Sanchez, all the mayors along the 78, for about an hour-long discussion with the mayors. And it was interesting listening. We all share mostly all the same problems with homelessness and housing and all of that kind of stuff. But it was a great conversation. Highly recommend watching it. Love Esco was a fantastic day. That is one of my favorite events. I love seeing all the vendors out there, and especially the 600 something, 700 volunteers that went out that day. Thank you to all of them. I participated in the government affairs lunch where we got to hear our police chief speak. And then I was in a news conference at San Pasqual High School over their new business program where the kids can intern at different businesses and receive college credits. And I actually got an intern from that who has already started, who is doing fantastic work. And then we had a budget subcommittee. He already said that. Housing subcommittee yesterday was fantastic, talking about the missing middle housing. And I'm anxious to see the next steps and what comes of that for the city of Escondido. But that will, I was walking down Grand Avenue and somebody nabbed me a couple of weeks ago. And it was a gentleman who purchased 7 buildings on Grand Avenue. And he was showing me some of the changes he's going to be making in these buildings. And it's just very exciting because those are the types of property owners and landlords we need in the city. So it's exciting seeing he purchased 7. And I'm anxious to see the changes that come from that. But that concludes my report.
A few things. I'm a member of the First Tier Suburbs Committee. with National League of Cities. We had our first meeting just to delineate our plan for the year. I also am a member of the Public Safety Federal Advocacy for the NLC also, and we had our first meeting, or our initial discussion as to how we're going to be working moving forward. I had a meeting with one of the managers of a large apartment complex here in Escondido with some considerable difficulties going on with homelessness there. We had a budget subcommittee today. I had the opportunity to represent the city at the VA San Diego Healthcare System VA Hospital Clinic here in Escondido on February the 9th for the ribbon cutting, and that will conclude my report.
Yes, so it was a great 3-day weekend. Gosh, it's been a couple of weeks here. So I attended the City of Escondido's Chamber of Commerce Government Affairs, and we did get to hear from our chief, and it was really good to hear a little bit about what's going to be coming up in the next meeting. I think it's going to be a lot of clarification, better understanding, so I'm looking forward to that presentation on that day. Also, the San Diego Air Pollution Control District meeting, they are looking at ways to get more money. So they're looking at raising fees to offset some of the county deficit. And so one of the questions that I'm coming in is, we can't expect the public to be making up for their mismanagement of funds. So we're trying to find other ways. So again, it doesn't increase the fees and it doesn't come out of the public's pockets. I attended the Economic Development Subcommittee meetings, and it was and also the Housing Subcommittee meeting, and I want to talk about those together because it's so good how both are just moving forward, well aligned, and they do complement each other in terms of what we're doing with businesses and housing. And I really just want to let the public know and to have the confidence that staff is listening, that we're listening, and that we are moving in the direction that's really going to be beneficial for those that we're trying to serve here in the city. So I just want to congratulate staff on just the phenomenal work that you're doing, the outreach that you're doing with Cal State San Marcos, really reaching out and branching out again to better serve our community. And then also Veronica Morones, our city planner and development services, just the ability to put it all together and explain it. And we had a lot of the more community members are attending, and I really appreciate that you were there. I see some of your faces here. So again, I'm glad that you were there so you can see our city at work and working hard for you. And again, participating is so important, so please continue to participate. I attended, on Saturday, I attended it's called Indigicon. So basically it's Comic-Con, but it's for a Native American here in San Diego. So they had it down by the Civic Center last year. They had it up at Harrah's. I've attended, and it looks like there might be talks of having it come over to the center, have a permanent home here. So that would be a really good discussion that maybe they're going to be bringing to the table at some point. This morning, I attended the Rising Stars Breakfast. It is a scholarship. It is a chamber charitable scholarship program that we have. And again, it's for not just all straight A students, but it's for those students that persevere through adversity, have a great outlook and focus on life, and really just are going to have a phenomenal future. So it was really good to be able to attend there, honor those students, hear their stories, and we're very excited about what their future holds. And your intern, Dane, received a scholarship. So it's exceptional young ladies, so the future looks really good for our city through the youth. And that is all I have to report. Thank you.
City Manager?
Couple things. We've received some community concerns about the potential loss of Mountain View pickleball courts. There are no plans to remove or reduce existing pickleball courts. In fact, we are adding 8 additional courts at that location. Currently, the park features dual-line courts accommodating both tennis and pickleball, 3 tennis courts or 12 pickleball courts. All existing pickleball and tennis lines will remain intact to allow user flexibility. And with the addition of the 8 courts, it brings the total potential at 20. That project is just getting kicked off right now. Also, I get to celebrate the hard work of the development services and fire prevention teams and Deputy City Manager McKinney. And tomorrow, because I'm participating in the Sustain Southern California conference at UC Irvine, and I'm going to be on a panel with KB Homes, the Institute for Home and Business Safety, talking about, once again, the Dixon Trails project, which is the first nationally certified wildfire resilient neighborhood.
All right, public comments.
Yes, we have a number of speakers. Thank you to everyone's patience for waiting through the rest of the meeting. Our first speaker is Denise Rowland. Denise? Okay, no problem. Kathy Haven does not want to speak. I'm so sorry. And then Ronald Foster, you did not want to speak. Just registering opinion. Georgine Tomasi.
Good evening, Mayor and members of City Council. Over the next week, you will be deliberating a decision that will affect residents in this city for many years to come. This decision is the MOA signed by Chief Plunkett to allow ICE to use the city's firing range. Each of you on this dais will discern whether or not the city's firing range will be used by men and women who were never screened, not investigated, and poorly trained. They've only been trained for 47 days. This is in vast contrast to the training a new hire to the Escondido Police receives. New hires to the EPD go through a rigorous selection process, background investigation, polygraphs, psychological exams, 6 months at the police academy, followed by 16 weeks of field training, and specialized training in de-escalation, principal policing, and crisis intervention, and I believe much, much more. I'm only just touching the surface there. Councilman Joe Garcia, 2 Sundays ago, you came to the downtown vigil to pray with other community members and pastors against the tragedies that occurred in Minneapolis. Your words of comfort were intended to help people heal from these atrocities that occurred in the city of Minneapolis. Your no vote next week to end the MOA will signal to residents in D2, which I live in, that you care and will not let them be the next target of ICE. Councilman Christian Garcia, the one thing that we have so far in common is that we're both educators. As an educator, you have the responsibility to see that families, children, students, and neighbors in D3 are safe and not targeted, kidnapped, or killed by an ICE agent. Mayor White, you are the mayor to all residents of this city. As a father, husband, son, and neighbor, I hope you can hear the pleas tonight in this room that ICE, the pleas in this room, ICE we have seen in other cities does not keep us safe. ICE creates chaos. They're cruel. They're hateful. And most recently, very, very careless. In fact, ICE carelessness led to the deaths of 2 people. In closing, tonight my ask is very simple. On February 25th, I'm asking you to vote to cancel the MOA Chief Plunkett signed this past November. I appreciate your attention to this matter and your deliberation that you will have this week on that matter. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Richard Garner.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. I'm here to speak about the contract, obviously. But one thing I would like to talk about before that is President Trump. President Trump doesn't represent everybody. He's made that clear. He's the representative for Republicans, not me, Democrat. He's not, you know, he's praises, you know, felons, grifters, but he calls people to maybe stand up for their constitutional rights, domestic terrorists. So my question for the City Council is, what kind of leader are you? Are you for all people in Escondido? Or just the voters that maybe say, hey, man, ICE is doing a great job? You know, who do you represent? Or, you know, what are you going to be like the norms of the past where presidents, once they were elected, were presidents of all the people? They didn't see, oh, it's a Republican state. We're not going to give them, you know, aid. So that's my question is, what kind of leader are you, and will you represent the whole community in regards to this ICE contract? Or do you represent community, which I hear you talk about since I've been to these meetings for a long time now, 65% of the community, 80% of the community, and then the 20% can be deported. So that's my question. Who do you represent, and are you going to stand up? Thank you.
Our next speaker is James Cassidy.
Good evening, Mayor White and City Council members. I'm a resident of District 4. I'm asking you to please think long and hard over this next week about canceling the ICE contract. It very well may well be your profile and courage that you need to take for each of you to do what is right. Your community is asking you to please cancel the contract. Would your ancestors ask you the same? DHS ICE, we all know when this contract was originally done, is not the DHS ICE we know today. Please cancel the contract.
Our next speaker is JC. JC? All right. Amelia?
As you may have guessed, I'm here to respectfully request that the contract that Chief Plunkett signed that invites ICE into our communities be canceled immediately. And sometimes I wonder what makes a person run for public office. Is it that you guys seek power, or is it that you guys are looking to give back to the community? And I'm sure you've all asked yourself those questions when you decided to run for the chance to sit in those seats. But sitting in those seats means that you have to answer to those you mean to serve. Sitting there opens you up to public scrutiny and criticism, and believe me, I have a lot to criticize. But as of yet, nothing comes close to what you'll decide to do in response to this misstep by the chief. What he has going for him is that the city allowed this contract to go through in the past. And what he has going for him is that he's new to Escondido. What you all have going for you is that this originally happened without your knowledge. That you all did not know about this contract and it didn't require your approval to be signed. But we are here now, and the curtain's been pulled back, and everyone is fully aware. And I'm sorry to inform you that this ICE contract, regardless of how it got here and what happens next, is going to be part of your legacy. There's a lot of gaslighting, defection happening, so let me be clear. This is not about how you feel about ICE. It's apparent that we're not likely going to see eye to eye on that. So much so that this country is in a literal partial shutdown because of it. This is about the city of Escondido inviting ICE into our communities by signing this contract. It's one thing to say, we don't assist ICE, we can't control what federal agents do. It's quite another thing to invite them in. And you can't spin that. There's nothing you can say to spin that. And at the end of the day, it's not about what leaders say, it's about what leaders do. The mark of a good leader is to own up to when they've made a mistake, especially if that mistake was unintentional and avoidable. The chief seems to be okay with the reputation and respectability of the department taking a hit on this. He doesn't seem to care about the years of trust our police officers have built with our community. I guess since he starts at zero, they all have to start at zero. After this came out, I saw a comment that says, "I will never trust the police again." So it's already started, and it's sad. The chief obviously does not know the history of Escondido, but you all do. You can use your authority to cancel this contract. You can show the community that you all serve that you hear them, their fear, and you will do what it takes to alleviate that. Canceling this contract does not mean that you don't support ICE, or you don't support the EPD or the chief. Canceling just means you support your constituents, and you will not sell out their trust in your leadership for anyone. I respectfully request that you put the cancellation of this contract up for a vote during next week's City Council meeting and unanimously vote to cancel it. Thank you.
Our next speaker, and I'm so sorry, is it Marianne Bruno? Okay, thank you. Yeah, thank you so much.
Good evening, member of this committee, and good evening, everybody. I'm a resident of Escondido. I live in your district, Mr. Garcia, Professor Wright. So I'm here to ask you guys. I mean, I don't even have to ask you, right? We already know every day we know what's going on in the federal office. So let's not play be foolish here. Everybody know what's going on. So this contract that you guys wanted to pass, you're going to bring Escondido to zero. Because Escondido, for 2 decades right now, is being the most peaceful city. I mean, it's being a lot of like here and there traffic and things like that for, that road that you need to fix. There's a lot of stuff that you need to be putting money on and not giving money to ICE. So you guys were, remember, you guys were voted to represent each of your district. So your constituents are asking for you, are waiting for you, who are you beside with? Are you gonna be side with the oath that you take here when you get your place to represent your district? Or are you gonna side to represent the fascists? This president is out of control. And he's going to bring everybody down. Everybody down. Luckily, president don't go to jail, They escape from that. So I've been seeing in this presidency a lot of people rolling the hamster roll to get a little reward. We don't need that. You guys don't need that. Let's just not play to be foolish and do the right thing. Myself, sometimes I go to hot tacos at night, 9, 10 in the morning, at night, and it's very safe. You bring your ICE, not only the community will be targeted. How about you one day you go to the pharmacy, you need a medicine, and you find this dude outside, alone. What will happen? I don't want to even think what will happen. Since the beginning of the last year, I've been seeing a lot of people talking about this issue. People in masks, people asking questions. We don't even know who are they. So you have the power to cancel this contract. It don't have to be like the public asks you to do that. You know which district you represent. You know what's going on. And I will ask you guys, read the files. Because I know that whatever is going on right now is also underneath, something is being hiding.
And your time has expired.
So, yeah. So it had nothing to do with the party, do you believe, or who we are as a person. This is a moral issue. So we must be responsible, everybody. Thank you.
Our last speaker is Maury Golshay.
Good evening, and thank you so much for allowing me to speak with you. I'm very, very sorry to be taking your time again because I was in front of you, and you were very kind enough to give us a break. And then I'm here to ask for more help because our project has failed. I'm talking about 500 West Mission, the 1 acres of land that we're trying to build a 7-Eleven. We've been stuck on this project 5.5 years. Mr. Shaw, Mr. Chris, they've been really amazing. Your staff has been amazing to work with, and I have nothing but thanks and gratitude for the city, but there's things that's happening with the economy which is out of my control, with the interest rate going up, the cost of construction, the value of real estate depleting, and so all of these things has created a situation that I came in front of you. You were very kind enough that for what here's the problem, that for construction of 50,000 square foot of land, we have over 1 acre. We're building only 4,000 square foot, that's all. 4,000 square foot of a single building, and because of that, the city has forced us to build a red light a quarter of a mile away, which has nothing to do with our property. And, you know, the city council was very kind enough to limit the cost of it to $560,000, but unfortunately, we run out of money. The construction of our project is stopped September of this year, and we have had no more money. I have found someone that has agreed to invest in this project to bring it to fruition and completion, but with the condition that we will be the work to build another pole somewhere else, a quarter of a mile, which has nothing to do with our property, would be eliminated. This is a very fair thing to ask and a very fair thing for the city council to do. I was just talking to a friend of mine that Mission and White in city of Pomona, on a 60,000 square foot of land, just slightly bigger than this, he's building 412 apartments, and the city is not asking them to do any improvement, nothing at all, nothing to build a new red light. And as you know, the cities all over California, they've been asked to increase the density, and they are. And people all over LA building all kinds of high-rises, actually some of them with no parking, 0 parking, and they go up, they build a lot of units. And please, I consider it's a fair thing that now that we run out of money, have no more money, eliminate the obligation to build a red light quarter of a mile away, which we have nothing to do with it, and the density is so low, we're not creating any additional traffic. The 7-Eleven, which is across the street, is going to close and come in here. There is no change in the intersection, so I'm kindly asking you, please, to remove this obligation so that we can build and complete this project.
Thank you, Mr. Golshay.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
And thank you, Sean. Thank you, Chris. Thank you. Have any questions that you can ask me, maybe?
We can't respond right now, but the meeting's adjourned right now, so we can talk to you afterwards.
Thank you. Thank you so much.